Hello everybody, welcome to the Mortal Kombat panel. How is everybody doing? Good. Nice, nice. I'm going to be your quick host, but I want to introduce everybody really quick. We have Master Daniel Pesina here with you guys. And we also have Mr. Richard Divizio. And, for all of you that know, they're an integral part and a very important part of the history of Mortal Kombat. So I'm just going to go ahead and pass on the microphone to them and just tell us a little bit about the history of the game, how it started, the motion capture and any type of behind the scenes stories that are, I can tell you guys, there are some very interesting stories into the making of Mortal Kombat. Some funnier than others, but very, very interesting stories that you will not believe. So if you want to start off, Richard, how did everything with the game started and how you guys...
I just want to first say thank y'all for coming to Mo Game Con. And we wouldn't be here unless it was for you guys, so just want to thank you all for coming down and seeing us and caring and loving the game for all these years. So I appreciate that. Thank you. But Danny is going to take the first stab at this.
Yeah. Mortal Kombat's conception was done by a group of geeks who got together on Sundays to play D&D at one of our friends' home, who later on helped ink the first ever Mortal Kombat comic book. So before Mortal Kombat, there was a group of friends who used to hang out, including the creator of Mortal Kombat, John Tobias, back in the day. We used to go to Andy Kudelka, and he's the one who drew the comic book and also did the artwork for Nintendo when it came out to the home system. A very talented artist. So yeah, most of the people from 1 and 2 would always get together and go to movies and stuff, and eventually later on, myself and Richard got a call from John Tobias years later, and he had an idea he said he needed help for a fighting game. And so myself, Rich, Carlos, and John snuck into Midway at about 10 o'clock at night because he didn't want anyone to steal his idea of doing a fighting game, this particular type of fighting game, because back then I guess it was common for other people to hear your idea and then try to be the first one to get the budget to make the game. So we went in and we had some ideas and a little bit of trivia, which will probably shock most people, but originally when we presented the project to Ed didn't think it was a good idea.
And that's Ed who?
Ed Boon.
Okay.
Yeah, he thought it was not this type of fantasy game wouldn't be a good draw. He thought it'd be. He said he liked our idea of having a fighting game, but he wanted to do one with Jean-Claude Van Damme. So originally, kind of people were like, "Oh, Jean-Claude Van Damme was going to be in it." Originally, from the conception, no, but later on, when the actual bosses of Midway heard about it, they tried to switch it. But yeah, but more importantly, I think we should field questions.
Yeah, any questions out there? Start maybe over here. Okay, go ahead.
What was the hardest thing about doing motion capture and doing all this secrecy?
Hold on, who's going to give you a mic? Did we go that far?
What was the hardest thing while filming the motion capture and conceptualizing the game that you guys had to deal with being under this amount of secrecy and scrutiny?
Thanks. For me, being I'm going to take it before Rich.
Yeah,
for me, being the first character to do at the beginning, as Rich can later tell stories, that we didn't, we basically filmed it in a storage room. So there was no mocap back then. There was no Photoshop or anything like that. So we did it on video tape. And quick one so you know how low budget it was. One day I was going to film and John called me up and said, hey, today we cannot film because I forgot to ask my father for permission to use the camera. So we had to hold off filming for like 3 days, and then we got the camera. So it was that low budget. And at the beginning, when we were doing the jumps and the falls and stuff like that, we did it on concrete because they didn't have mat. I mean, they had a mat, but it wasn't available to us because we weren't a big enough project. And then as it progressed, we suggested to get a mat because we were like other people we're trained in martial arts, so you know we could take it. We know how to fall, but later on, if we get anybody else, they're not going to want to land on concrete.
We were all right with it, you know. We're trained, so we can do whatever. So, but yeah, like in the future, if they were going to have more characters down the road, definitely needed to get some cushions or mats in there. But pretty much the room we filmed Mortal Kombat in was, it's like a storage room, which was probably a quarter of the size of this room. I don't even think there was a green screen. It was just like a gray wall.
Yeah, we found the flattest gray wall we can shoot against.
You got to think back then there was nothing digital. It was like kind of like what, analog?
Yeah.
And everything was shot on videotape. So nothing high res, but it was pretty crude. Yeah. But for that time, you know, you look at it and you go, wow, you know. I do remember the first time John was filming me do some moves. We still kind of didn't know where this game was going, but he would have us just stand in a spot, film us. It's like, where's this game going? Come on over here, Rich. Watch. So there's a monitor, and it'll film you, and I think video's like 30 frames a second. So he plays that back, and he really doesn't need all 30 frames. So I do remember him asking me a question. So if you're going to fight someone, how are you going to stand? It was like one of the first things we filmed. I said, well, if I'm going to fight someone, I'm going to be something like something like this, you know, ready to get this guy. He's like, yeah, that's a little bit too low, you know. They eventually needed everyone to kind of, whether you were tall or short, everyone kind of needed to be around the same height. So kind of like to answer your question, you know, the most difficult thing was probably just figuring all this out. It wasn't already laid out. This was a huge collaboration of a bunch of creative people in a room. Like I said, it was not laid out, but the thing was like, all right, well, how's this going to work? And not only that, Daniel can tell you that a lot of the first stuff that we shot was trashed. Am I right?
Yeah, I shot for like 3 or 4 days, 8 hours a day, almost every martial art move that I could think of.
But you got fed, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We would...
You told John what?
Yeah. When it was time to eat, we'd call Ed up because Ed had a credit card, company credit card. So he'd be in his office, and we'd call him up and say, hey,
pizza.
You know, yeah, can you buy us a pizza? And he'd be like, oh, sure, go ahead. How you guys doing? Oh, doing good. Okay, well, I'll buy you pizza, send it over there. Okay. You need something else, just, you know, call me. So, yeah, we did get fed.
Yeah, we got fed good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we kept moving around, so we didn't get that fat. But anyhow, but yeah, that's probably, I'd say, one of the hardest things was just figuring out where this was going to go. But yeah, when John pulled me over to the monitor and I saw myself, you know, doing something, he says, well, when you are fighting someone, how would you get ready? And, you know, you see Bruce Lee, you know, getting ready and moving. He's like, okay, I can't have all that kind of movement on the screen. So can you do something that I could loop? So I did a little something like this. I just stood there and did like, he's like, okay, stop, that's it. That's all I need. I'm like, okay, whatever, that's it. Yeah. That really was hard.
But it took a couple hours to get that.
Yeah, you know, you get that, and he's like, do it again. Do it again. I'm like, I did it again. I'm trying not to swear. There was a lot of swearing that day.
Oh, there is.
So he comes back, he's like, all right, this is you on the screen. So I'm doing this, looped, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So he's like, all right, we'll go back and do that same thing, but throw a punch from that position. So I'm standing there like this, and I went, I think I did it wrong like a million times, and then Danny, luckily, he's there, you know, and he was my coach since I was 13 years old. So, you know, if I did something wrong, he's like, you're throwing the punch wrong. So, you know, I throw a punch. No, you don't throw it that way. That's not the way I taught you. So, anyway, I would just be like this, and then I would throw a punch and then go right back into that position. So when those video frames were grabbed, John would be able to, let's say, he would call this something like loop on the screen, whatever. And then the one with the punch, he would call like loop punch. Let's just say something like that. What he can do is then, let's say loop punch was code-wise, that would be connected to a console that had a button on it that said punch. And whenever you would hit punch, it would pull that animation up of me punching right away. But as soon as it played that little instance of animation, it would retract back to the default guy going like this. So it would constantly just go. So you got to think about this. Every single move, whether it was
Get over here.
whether it was a walk this way, a walk back, you know, for the joystick to go left, joystick to go right, every single move was created. It took a lot of time.
Next question. I'll get this guy. He's closer. You're second.
So did you guys have any creative input into the games at all?
Well,
Yes, a lot of it.
the ninjas look like this because I insisted that the ninjas look like this. Because it was a low-budget game, I knew I and we wanted to do a geeky, creative game. John originally wanted the ninjas to be like Japanese, and it's the late 80s, 90s. I was like, every single martial art movie has Japanese ninjas. I was like, there's this book, Skill of the Vagabond. I have a copy. There's ninjas, Chinese ninjas, known as the Lin Kuei. We have to have that in the game.
Yep, that's.
And then John was like, can I borrow the book? And I was like, no, because I'm a geek. And you know that if you lend a friend a comic book, you never get it back. So I was like, no, I'll go with you to the store and buy it, but I'm not going to lend you my book. So, so that and other, just basically up to their personalities were up to us. Almost everything that was created at the beginning for the first 4 or 5 characters, actually the first game, was done, the creative part was done on the camera. Good example, or legendary example is Ed. Later on when we were shooting the 5th character, John was like, hey, you mind if Ed helps out, create some moves? And I was like, sure, let's see what he's got. So the first move he wanted to do was me to take a lasso around my head and then throw it, and then hand over hand pull the opponent towards me. And the first thing I said to him was, no, I'm not Wonder Woman. And then Rich is helping out that day, and I'm just like, but there's a weapon, it's an actual weapon in Chinese martial arts. It's used to pull people off their horses, kind of anti-cavalry
like
weapon.
in battle, yeah.
Yeah, so I had one, and I showed him moves, and then John was like, yeah, let's do that. So as I was doing the move and pulling on it, Rich yelled in the Kano voice, get over here. And so every time you hear that voice, even today, that is like a tribute to Rich.
Well, he had this thing, he has this dagger, and I'm looking at the thing, and I'm thinking, why don't you just like throw it into the guy's chest, and then you can just reel him back. And I'm like, when you're pulling him back, just tell him, get over here. And then just give him like an uppercut or something. So that's kind of how that went down.
Yeah, so that's the creative thing. And even today, it's funny, even when I hear it today, I start laughing because it's like a tribute to Rich. It is, yeah, for...
I think Ed's voice was recorded for the actual movie, but that idea of saying "get over here,"
Or the way he says it is, Rich.
yeah, because
So there's a lot of,
it had to be said that way.
There's
I
tons.
just said, "Get over here,"
yeah.
you know, and pulling the guy back and doing something to him that was, and sticking him with this thing, and you know, there's a lot of things like that that creatively, it's just things were just coming to our mind. So you know, it wasn't like, oh, John Tobias created everything. It was not like that.
Though he created,
He's
85% is John Tobias. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
He is the father of Mortal Kombat.
But like I said, it was a collaboration between a lot of us there. You know, back in the day, we did a lot of movie watching, so we had a lot of creative things going on in our head. Big Trouble in Little China, which a lot of people probably, you know, we used to watch the movies like The Thing, John Carpenter, The Evil Dead. That's, you know, all these Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. We all grew up with that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, we tried to incorporate that.
we tried to incorporate a lot of that kind of thing.
And that's where the fatality for Kano came from, right? Indiana
Well,
Jones,
yeah,
right?
that's when I had to film my fatality. Like I said before, it's not like John had this list going of like, all right, well, this is like if it's like a corporate thing where they're like, this is what you're doing, this is what you need to follow. It wasn't like that. It was like, well, what do you got? I'm like, well, how about I just lean over and rip this guy's heart out, John, and then I just hold it up. Now I hear the story that I can't remember. I'm getting older, so but Danny will say that day that I did that is that I ripped it out and I took a bite of it, and then I held it up. But when I did that, I'm like, you know, I'll just go, you know, grab that in there and raise it up like that and rip the guy's heart out. John's like, yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. But I got that from, you know, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. I remember. Let's just go back to like the news and all of the, hey, this is a violent game, and Time Magazine. I still have the issue with myself on the cover. Because they're like, oh, this game's violent, you know, and they're ripping hearts out and stuff. And I'm like, that's me on Time Magazine. But, you know, I'm thinking Spielberg was doing this in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. They're lowering this guy down into the fire in this cage. But I think before they did that, they did like some sort of like... yeah, like some sort of like weird ritual where they rip the guy's heart out and the guy's like, you know, I'm thinking, you know, what, we can't do that? You know, Spielberg's doing it. So, but, you know, it's kind of hard to find a lot of original ideas these days. It's, you know, usually everything is from somewhere. You know, a little bit tweaked here, a little bit there.
But we were proud of that.
Huh?
We were very proud of that, taking stuff from like our childhood or just favorite movies.
And they're
or
doing
just,
it again. If you see Stranger Things, that's like a throwback to those 80s of, you know, riding around on the BMX bicycles and, you know, and even playing D&D and the Gorgon or whatever they call it, the Demi-Gorgon, all that's coming back. So, but we were doing that back then. We were, you know, we were retro when retro wasn't retro. Let's just say that.
We're old.
I might have to get a shirt like that.
So when you guys were making this game, it sounds like it had very, very humble beginnings. Did you ever have any idea that it would have the legacy that it does with movies, comic books, TV shows? I mean, we're up to 11 now, you know?
Yeah, pretty interesting. Because when we signed up to do it, we finally got to, okay. So it was canceled. Mortal Kombat was canceled. Jean-Claude Van Damme didn't want to do our project. So it was canceled. Rich called John Tobias every day, 3 or 4 times a day.
No.
But
I believe John called me.
No, after that.
Oh, you mean after that? Okay.
After that, 3 or 4 times a day, bugging him. Hey, we call each other Boop. Hey, Boop, why don't we go back to the original idea? Hey, Boop, why don't we come back to the original idea? So after about 5 days of that, John was like, okay, let me ask Ed. Ed, can we go back to the original idea of just doing a small game? And he's like, okay, you know, you could do it 200 cabinets. So John came back to me. He's like, we're going to do 200 cabinets. And I was like, no, we're going to do 201 because you're going to give me a cabinet. And then John was like, you know what? You know, those cabinets are $2,000. There's no way you're going to get $2,000
I think they were
out of
more
us.
like 3,000 to 4,000.
At the time, at the time, whatever the number was, he's like, no, we're only going to make 200 cabinets. That's it. You're not going to get a game because we're not going to make that many. So, no, because they told us we're only making 200. Naturally, when it got bigger, all of a sudden they're going to make tons of games now. But yeah, at the beginning was that. It was going to be a small game. And myself, my brother Carlos, and Rich always thought it would be an awesome game because, you know, we wanted to make it the best we could, but we never thought it would be popular because they told us they were going to make 200 arcade games. Add something?
Question?
Did you get a cabinet?
In the end, I did not. In the end, they offered me a cabinet to give up my right to image because they didn't own the rights to image to bring it to the home systems.
Yeah, like the first contract we signed, there was nothing on there that stated anything about home games. Because I think even at that time, I don't even know what home systems were even out in like 1991, 92.
Yeah,
But that wasn't their plan initially.
Do you know of any? No?
Okay.
Just the start.
And Nintendo probably wouldn't have wanted to touch this game,
At
being
that time.
it was a violent, you know, kind of, at that time it was considered, you know, violent. And there were no ratings at that time, I don't believe, a system
Yeah.
The
in
game
place.
actually started the ratings.
But contract-wise.
Yeah, we corrupted your youth.
Yeah.
He's proud of it.
Get over here.
Right? That's for, yeah, but so.
Fight.
How did the whole controversy affect? Did you guys feel like, did you guys have any involvement with everything that was going on with the controversy? Did you feel like it affected you guys directly, or?
I didn't really work for Midway, so John or Ed would call me up because I had the biggest mouth. And that's why Johnny Cage has a big mouth. Really. Really it was, because during shooting I would be doing like, not quite acting like the goofy Johnny Cage, but acting more like a real martial artist Johnny Cage, kind of a little bold but kind of brassy. So they would call me up and say, hey, guess what, we can't comment on this, but can you, if we send a reporter to you, can you comment on this and say this, please? And so they would send them my way and I would give them an interview and say, you know, and I agreed with what they said. I don't think, you know, my brother's Raiden, and we both do martial arts, and we never really killed each other or anything like that. My mom would beat my ass. If I hit my little brother, oh my God, I would be in so much trouble, because no matter how much, no matter what level of Kung Fu master you are, your mom will beat your butt.
Question in the corner there?
Hold on. Please.
Now, speaking on martial arts and Johnny Cage, can you still do the splits?
I get
Not
pretty,
me.
I could get pretty low, but recently I had because of that, because of my martial art career, I have a new hip and a new knee. So.
And I'm on my way to getting a new hip and a new knee.
But if I
That's why
warm
I'm
up,
sitting down.
if I warm up, I can still do the split. Yeah. So it just, yeah. So you know, we used to compete and stuff like that, and you know, when you're young, you think you're going to live forever, so you do crazy things. You know, we were at the beginning. I think now they call it extreme martial arts, where they're doing all the flipping, turning. They got all that stuff from contemporary wushu.
They're going to be in pain later.
Yeah, they got that from.
Just so you know.
From contemporary wushu, which just means contemporary martial art. China started making sport art, and so they had crazy flips, and that's what we used to do, besides traditional martial arts. But yeah, so.
Yeah, that's what wushu is. Same stuff that Jet Li does. But we
Jackie
were
Chan.
doing that in the 80s.
Let me get this done right here. Over here.
You got one here?
What other ideas for fatalities were there floating around?
Oh, I got one.
That didn't make it into the final game.
I don't know about one that didn't make it into the final game.
Your windmill
my,
knife.
My brain only remembers all the stuff that makes it. But one of the things that I always liked growing up from Jason and the Argonauts was skeletons. I love skeletons. That's why I like Killer Instinct, because I like that guy with the shield or whatever his name is, but Spinal, yeah. But a fatality for Scorpion. So I know not only did the heart idea, I also did the get over here idea. And then a third one was when, because Danny and I hung out a lot. Like I said, he was my coach. So when he was filming Scorpion on a day, he had, for his fatality, I thought of, wouldn't it just be cool if he just takes that mask off and underneath was like the face of a skeleton, which would be pretty cool. Because I was like, you know, yeah, what's he look like under there? And I also thought I wanted him to like then blow fire, you know, and just burn the other guy to a crisp. So, you know, they wrote that down like, yeah, that's cool too, you know. So that's like 3 of the things I'm proud of as far as introducing to the Mortal Kombat world, because that's in the game and that's in there forever. And so I'm proud of that.
Yeah, add more detail. So John wanted me to spit fire from Scorpion. So I'm like, no, I'm not going to spit fire, because again, we're always goofing around. John is telling me what to do, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, no, because if I spit fire, the mask will light on fire.
So he wanted you to do like a real Gene Simmons thing?
Yeah, just to go like this. He was like, oh, you're going to shoot fire, but I got this mask on with this. And I'm like, no, because the fire will make the whole head turn on fire.
I see.
And then John is like, well, smart ass, can I say that? Oh, well, smart ass, move this down. And then Rich was like, oh, move the whole cast. And he's a freaking skeleton. So stuff like that. But as far as fatalities that were missed, Rich had a wielding knife attack, where he wheels around and chops the people in, but John did think that was a little violent. If you see the video,
crossing the line.
Yeah, if you see the actual video footage of it, you're like, oh, kind of like, oh.
Yeah, it's a good thing we took that out.
Yeah, it is a good thing. Tell
them about about Liz's kiss and the friendship and all that, because I always like that story.
Yeah,
this is a good story.
So we're shooting Liz and
Sonia,
the
first Sonia,
original Sonia. Only
she
Sonia.
is. There's only one original.
There's only one original. Yeah, because once it's done, it's original. So John is like, okay, what kind of fatality do you want to do? So he looks at me and I'm kind of like that. She's like, wait a minute, why do I have to kill these guys? Can't we all be friends?
Because it's a fighting game.
But she came up with the first friendship, because she's like, can't we all be friends? Can't I just give them a flower or something, and you know, I don't have to kill them? And so we all laughed at that, and later on that was the idea for number 2, to make the first friendship. But then I was like, oh, it'd be cool if we did the kiss of death. And then John was like, oh, what if you kiss your hand and blow it? And I was like, oh, and what if it like looks like a butterfly? It goes like this. As soon as it hits you, you go poof. And then boom.
You see what I mean? If you're in that room back in what, 91?
90,
something like
90,
that? 91,
yeah,
92?
We filmed some in 89, so.
If you're in that room and you're with your friends that you've known for a long time and you're just coming up with stuff, and you know, you don't know where it's going to go, but you know, it does. You just come up with like cool stuff.
And we always took the best idea. It wasn't matter who was saying it. If that was the coolest idea, we were going to do it. You know, I know now it's like the corporate has to have complete control and you have to do what they say.
What was the there's a question that I always get. People say like, how did Mortal Kombat start to even at the end of when you fight someone, that it was going to be like you just didn't beat the crap out of him. It was just like, you know, like incorporate something where you end up finishing them off. Yeah. So, and I know you know this story, so tell them how that kind of went with Ed. You told this story before, right?
Yeah. So John was like, okay, what we want to do is we're going to have a beatdown move where we didn't have the concept of combinations like we do now. Later on, it just happened to lead into combinations, but we were going to create manufactured combinations. Like you hit the buttons, let it go, and then the character would do 8, 9 blows and just beat you down. And then once you're down, you can pick what kind of fatality you want to do it. And actually, that's where finishing comes, because we're like, finishing move. You're going to do some finishing move. You're going to finish him. So we kept on saying that, and then later on, it came in. It wasn't fatality. You're going to do a fatality. Yeah. So then you'd press the button, and then he'd pick one of several ways to finish you.
So, I just imagine at that time you're like, all right, well, I guess we got to come up with moves then to finish the guy off.
Yeah,
you know,
and
then how we're going to finish the person off, you know?
Yeah, so we have a bunch of moves where, like Johnny Cage would literally just like swing at your face, and then hit you on top of the head and take a step back, and then he'd grab you by the head, lift you back up, and then punch your head off. But later on, that was too, I guess. Back then, the memory and stuff like that couldn't hold so much information. But yeah.
Yeah, it had to be like a quick kill.
Yes. Please, yeah, please.
Kind of going off the question of the last one, but was there any characters that even your idea or somebody else that was going to be in the original or you wanted to do that just didn't work or that someone didn't like?
Originally, I was going to be Striker, and I did not want to be Striker. Imagine, you guys know what Striker is now. He's one of the most, back then I already could foresee he was going to be like a terrible choice. I didn't, when I think of martial artists, I think,
who's Striker?
When I think of martial artists, I think, there was John already had a few sketches for characters. There was a Raiden character. There was a Kano character that actually looked already like Kano, like Rich, beforehand. And then there was a Daniel Rad character. And I'm a big Iron Fist comic geek. And I wanted to be the Daniel Rad character. But John knew that. And he's like, no, you're not going to be Daniel Rad character. You're going to be the Striker character. I said, I don't want to be the Striker character because he looks so plain, and he's just like very not good, you know. What's going to be his moves? He's, you know what I mean? You're in a supernatural world, and you're a cop, which means like
boring.
Yeah, hand to hand. You know, martial artists. You know, when they think of combat, they think of killing, and when you think of police, hand to hand, you think of just subduing. So I was like, there's no way, he doesn't have enough training to do this. But John insisted that I be Striker. But when the game finally came back, he was like, okay, we're going to do the Daniel Rad character. And later on, as it became more popular, I guess Midway put the urban legend out that, oh, he's modeled after Jean-Claude Van Damme. That wasn't how we created it. That just happened with people's opinion who weren't in the room filming and creating it. But naturally, they own it and they're the boss. That's what you get.
You had a question back there. No. Same haircut as me. Yeah, you. Yeah. Before. Go ahead. Actually, Dan's the guy behind. But all right, you're next then.
Oh.
Okay.
Sorry, you're next. Go ahead.
Is like,
take your time.
What did you guys like ever expect it to go to this level, like to be so popular even now? Did you feel like this was going to die out?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I do have kind of an answer for that. Obviously, you know, after the first digitized games where they actually filmed us doing the stuff, because I did MK1, 2, and 3, and then I remember they switched over to, with 4 was the first 3D game, and I was Quan Chi in that one. Then they ended up doing the motion capture, and my life kind of went somewhere else, and I wasn't really training as much anymore, and they started using different characters and so forth. So my life just was getting a little bit different. Not that I fell away from,
Very different?
Well, I was working a lot. I wasn't doing so much for Midway anymore, and not that I didn't follow Mortal Kombat over the years, but you know, you kind of knew like, all right, well, Mortal Kombat 5, then 6, then 7, then 8, then 9, then 10, you know, and then it just kept coming out. I think Deception, they had asked us to come in to do an interview. It was like, hey, bring the old guys back, you know, and so on the disc there's an interview with like John Parrish and myself and so forth.
It's just crazy.
And they're like, you know, what was your favorite character? So we did that on the DVD when it came out. You can watch it on there on Deception. Is Deception 7? Okay. Deception is 8? Okay. So, you know, as we're getting into like current day, you know, we all have regular jobs now and, you know, paying the bills and so forth. A friend of ours has an arcade in Brookfield, Illinois, back in Chicago, suburb of Chicago. And you probably know this more than I do, but the way I usually tell the story is, you know, like he had called us and said he was going to have a tournament called Shang Tsung's Fight Night. Like, okay, you know, I didn't know really that ever. I knew Mortal Kombat is just really advanced now, like with all the graphics and stuff like that. But as far as like the fan base goes, I didn't really know that there was this whole like retro fan base. So he says, yeah, I want you guys to come on in. I'm going to do this like tournament night where everybody plays each other and they bring in their own consoles. And I didn't even know that world existed. But there's guys building like their own custom consoles and they play each other, you know, and all this stuff. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. He's like, yeah, but I want you guys. I'm like, what do you need us there for? He's like, what are you talking about? It's like, you guys are famous. I'm like, famous? Like, I work on trains during the day. I'm a mechanic. Like, what are you talking about? He's like, no, you guys, don't you guys know who you are? I'm like, no. He's like, just come on in. I'm like, yeah, I know I was Kano and stuff like that, but he's just like, no, you guys got to come in here. He's like, we're going to do this. He's like, just come on by. Apparently what he had done is he had found pictures of us on the internet from over the years, and he had these pictures printed up. We didn't know this. So we get to this first Shang Tsung Fight Night at this arcade. There were about like 570 people in line. Out the door, we're like, oh my God. I was there for 6 hours signing autographs. And I'm like, really? Like, I didn't know this. Like, no, they're fans of yours. And like, I didn't know this. And then like the next year he did like Shang Tsung's Fight Night 2, and then it grew, and then Fight Night 3, and it just kept going and getting larger, and then he eventually had to get like a hall, like a banquet hall or something to, you know, and it got larger and larger, and eventually it turned into something called Kombat Con. But the whole thing is that being away from it for a while, I really didn't know that there was this huge fan base. We did Wizard World in Chicago, and I remember someone came up to us and said, like, yeah, my daughter, I named her Katana. You know, so like you were like, you know, I've been following you my whole life, and it feels good. So I thank all of you.
Thank you.
You know, thank everyone here and everyone you know and everyone that's out there. We appreciate it, and I think it's great. It's awesome.
So to kind of go off that, I'm curious how you found out and where you were when you found out that MK1 was a big deal, that it was actually blowing up, and how did that affect...
And we weren't going to get any money? Because we already signed the contract, you mean? And we signed our likeness away, and now by 1995 it made about $5 billion, and we weren't going to see any of that? How did I feel then?
Sorry?
Was that your question?
Maybe a different question. How did the...
Yeah, so it was Super Bowl Sunday, and they decided to test the game. And John is like...
now we're going back a little
yeah.
bit. We're going back
So John drops the cabinet off.
Still hasn't made a lot of money yet.
Checks on it, and then said a couple hours later, he gets a call, hey, there's something wrong with your game. So John is like, okay, there's something wrong with the game. He goes in, and he looks at it, and like, everything is good, but then he checks the coin box, and the coin box is full. So he empties it out, and he goes, okay, the coin box is full. And he's like looking around, he goes, there's nobody by the game. And he's like, 2 hours later, gets another call. And he's like, something's wrong. He goes in again. First thing he checks is the coin box this time. Full.
Was it like it doesn't play if it's
super,
full?
Right. It doesn't play if it's not making quarters.
Oh, I see. So that no one can play it, so no one's near the game. But once they empty it out,
yeah, they go
it's
back
ready
to the
play.
game, and
they
don't
fill it
worry, you're
again.
never going to see any of those quarters.
Yeah, that's, and I never did.
So this happened throughout the night of Super Bowl Sunday, which it usually is. Nobody's at the arcade. So when John saw that, he was like, "This game is going to be huge." You know, so with that, yeah.
But yeah, we had already, we were young, and I think I was like 22, and I knew nothing about having a lawyer, nothing like that. So and I think even at the time, the way I kind of reflect on it is, damn, I wish I had that money.
Yeah, actually, they strung us along pretty good, promising us bonuses.
Yeah, because the promise kind of hung in there, like they.
Don't worry, we're going to give you a bonus.
They were going to
work on it more. They're going to take care of you. Work on it more. Don't worry. You don't need to worry about that. We're all family. We're in the end.
Yeah.
And then at the end of 2, I was like, well, I'm finishing 2. You haven't paid me for 1, and you guys promised me, some kind of bonus. Can I get the first bonus from number 1?
They did come back with an offer
And
after they kind of saw that we were like, this is a hard pill to swallow, that you're not really going to give us any royalties. Oh, but you already signed, So they were like, all right, how about for each game that you're involved in, we'll give you a cabinet. I'm like, just a cabinet? I'm like,
yeah.
How much is a cabinet?
You know where they got that idea from.
How much is a cabinet worth? They're like, well, the cabinet's worth about $3,000. I'm like, do you want the cabinet or do you want the money? And at that time, it's like, I'm 22. I don't even have a house yet. So I have no basement. I have no place to put a cabinet. Would have been cool now, like for a man cave or something, and with the arcade cabinet. But I was like, no, I'll take the $3,000.
And whatever politics you associate with Chicago, that's pretty much how it went. As far as law.
Very corrupt.
Yeah.
There's a question from Facebook Live.
Yes.
The question is
17.
from DJ Castaneda asks, are you too good at the game, playing the game? And which one is your favorite Mortal Kombat game?
Used to be, but not anymore.
Not good. I spend all my time practicing martial arts, so I suck at everything else, except for killing you in real life.
If he has to.
And the other question was that which one is your favorite?
I love Raiden. I wanted to be Raiden. My brother got to be
play.
Raiden.
Character, yes.
Actually, I like to play Scorpion in Mortal Kombat 1. Just because,
Yeah, because get over here.
Yeah, because get over here. But in MK2, Baraka, because I like to do the, with the blades, because, someone to jump right into the blades. So I thought that was kind of cool. Go ahead, yeah.
Whose idea was it to have the rivalry against Sub-Zero and Scorpion?
Ooh. Oh my God.
That's a good question, though.
So we're going to film the ninjas, and it's my brother, myself, Rich, and John in the room. And the time before, all three of us kind of made fun of Rich. We would take turns making fun of each other.
Really? See, why am I worried right now?
So we already made fun of Rich, and a couple of filmings before, we made fun of Carlos. And I'm being older and tougher than them, I rarely got made fun of. But then we decided to make fun of John. So we're kind of ribbing John about shit, that we're not going to do anything he wants to do, that we're going to do our own thing. And, he wants to get this, it's crunch time, he wants to get some more characters in, and we're just goofing around. And so John looks at me and Carlos, and it's like, you know what? These guys, these ninjas, are brothers. And one brother, and then, which immediately shut Carlos up. Carlos looks like brothers. He goes, and one brother murders the other brother.
Because you guys are brothers.
You're right. And then Carlos is like, brothers would never murder each other. And then John is like, guess what? One brother murders the other brother because they murdered his father, who taught the kung fu to both of them. And one wants to seize the clan, and the other ninja is better, but doesn't want to take over the clan because the father is still alive. And so all of a sudden, the guy you're dressed up murders the other guy. And so that's how. So every time I hear Sub-Zero and Scorpion story, I start to laugh because that's my brother Carlos.
You know what's cool is like you hear all this stuff, and all of this is going on and being created while we're all growing up and we're in our own lives. There's no movie yet, but all of this is, it's this weird because, you know, we're a part of this time where we don't really know what this is going to become. But it's just, it was so awesome to even just be a part of something that you didn't know was going to be so great. So I love that.
Yeah, so the rivalry is kind of out of spite.
We have another question from Facebook Live.
Hold on, Facebook. Not just kidding.
The question is, would there be any possibility that Daniel Pesina and Richard Divizio be working on a new Mortal Kombat game in the future?
No. I don't. For me, I'm a martial artist, and right now you could get younger martial artists to do the moves, so my value wouldn't be, they could probably do it better than me, flip around better than me. I'm 60. So,
and I'll be 50.
Yeah, so they can do it better. My genius, if you let me, like the first and second game, take control of the fighting and take control of the fatalities and things like that.
And I'll come up with the fatality moves. And you do the martial arts.
Yeah, so I would be good
something kick-ass.
I would be good at that, and it's been proven that I could be good at that. But otherwise, especially with the corporate world, they won't let that go. You know, everybody, it was speaking to you, that a lot of people want to invent Mortal Kombat, even though it's already been invented, created. So instead of contributing to it, they want to be like, oh, I created Mortal Kombat. No, it's been already created. You know, you should follow the storyline. You should follow the characters. You shouldn't change up people's, you know, acting differently than they were created, kind of type of thing. So I don't see myself going back. You know, there would be no creative point to it. And by the way, when it was announced that we were going to do Mortal Kombat 2, John Tobias did not want to do it. He was right away, he was like, well, why would I want to do this? I already created the best fighting game ever. He was like, I'd rather do a different game. He goes, but he got talked into doing number 2 and 3, and by the time, I think it was 5 came around, he's like, I can't do this. I don't want to create, I'm a creator. I don't want to just, you know, let the business guys take over.
That's why, you know, eventually John Tobias kind of, you know, parted ways with Midway. You know, in the suits who work for Midway, you know, their idea was as long as it keeps making millions of dollars, we're just going to keep pumping these games out every year. But John is a creative soul. Well, he had to walk away because it's more important to him, you know, to not just, you know, crank these out. And he wanted to do some other things. And he tried with Studio Gigante.
Yeah.
What was the game that he was working on?
Was it Fist of...
Fang or something?
Yeah, Fist of, yeah.
Tao Fang.
Tao Fang.
You know, I'm not sure how that did or, you know, but...
it looked really cool. I think again, the business side got kind of in the way.
And that's the thing, too, is like just Mortal Kombat, there was nothing like that then. I mean, yeah, we had Street Fighter, but...
Couple more quick questions.
You know, Mortal Kombat was completely different. But then after a huge success like this, then everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon and create the next big thing. And at some point, you got to start being a little bit creative and come up with something fresh and new. That's always difficult to do.
Getting back to when you were talking about how you guys all kind of grew up together and knew each other, you and Rich and Carlos. Did you guys also know Liz and Hosung, or how did they come into the game, or with number 2, getting Tony and John in there?
When I was 13 years old and I was in grammar school, actually I think probably like 12, 13, there was a kid who came to school with a pair of nunchucks. And I had played a lot of baseball. I was Little League, Pony League. Pee Wee, you know, I played baseball my whole life. I probably should have been a baseball player. But when he brought these nunchucks to school and he was twirling them around, this kid, Craig Clifford, I was like hooked. And I had never even seen a Bruce Lee movie in my life at that time. And I started hanging out with him, and he was showing us these Bruce Lee movies and stuff. And he was showing us some kung fu moves that he was doing. And I'm like, where did you learn that stuff? He's like, oh, from my friend Danny. I'm like, oh, maybe I can go over there. And remember, I'm like 13 years old. I don't know who this guy Danny is, but he's standing right here today. And I'm like 13, and now I'm going to be 50 this year. So he and I go back. So we're like brothers. So, but yeah, it's kind of emotional. But yeah, so Craig took me along one day, and I was introduced to Daniel, and then his brother Carlos, who was around our same age, and you were teaching kung fu. But at that time, I think Daniel was already practicing kung fu. Obviously, he's 10 years older than me, and he had been friends with Ho Sung Pak and Anthony Marquez, who plays Kung Lao, and Ho Sung Pak's brother, Ho Young Pak, and Craig a bunch Ziedman, of other martial artists.
Craig Ziedman.
Craig
Tony,
Ziedman. Yeah. These guys were all doing kung fu back in like 1980, 81, at a kung fu school on the north side of Chicago called Northern Shaolin 7-Star Praying Mantis. As far as how Craig met you, I don't know. That's a whole other story. But I had gone and met Daniel, and I saw what they were doing, and I'm like, I want to do this. I'm ditching baseball. But they were doing some cool stuff, and I started stretching and taking kung fu from Daniel, and then met, I think one day Daniel brought all the guys from the north side of Chicago to work out with us where Daniel lived on the south side of Chicago. And that's how I met Ho Sung. Who did you bring that day?
Tony, Ho Sung, Ho
Yeah,
Young,
and I met
Craig
all those
Ziedman,
guys at such a young age, and we just kind of all started hanging out together, we would go to martial art tournaments together, win trophies and things. Little did you know that, and then, there is a photograph of us, I think, around high school, where it's myself, Ho Sung, you, Anthony Marquez, but you look at the picture and you're like, that's the future Liu Kang, that's the future Kano, the future Johnny Cage, the future Kung Lao. We're all in this picture while we were young, but we were all pretty creative kids at the time.
Yeah.
And
yeah, actually, Tony was originally going to be the Ninjas.
Yeah, he was.
The day before he was supposed to film, he dropped a weight on his toe and he broke it.
So he had to wait till Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, he couldn't hold it.
Right?
He couldn't. Yeah, hold balance on one leg because it required you to kick slow. Because again, we had a cheap ass camera. But so we didn't really. So Tony didn't. At the last minute, they were like, "Well, you know all the moves, and we need to get this done. So you just do the ninjas."
That's how. Yeah, it's
good.
good.
And originally, I did for the ninjas, I did 5 different ninjas. So we had plenty of material. But at the time too, we would working and work out at a Lakeshore Athletic Club. So we knew Liz. I knew Liz as an instructor there, and John was like, "We need, a female." And right away I was like, "Oh, this, I wanted to pick out a female who would, as opposed to be just a model. I wanted somebody who looked like they can fight." And Liz looks like she can kick your ass.
We have time for probably one more question. So
maybe 2 if it's quick.
How did Kano get in the game if everything was digital? I mean, not digital.
How did who?
How did Kano get in the game if everything was supposed to be recorded on videotape and no green screen or editing?
Kano was in the game because they videotaped him like this. Everything was videotaped. So the only thing that was done was stop animation.
That's all colored in afterwards. Actually, the original mask that I have at home, which is a Phantom of the Opera mask with a hole cut in it. So while we were filming, there is no red eye.
Yeah,
that's
John,
all added afterwards,
John added
in Photoshop
that to
or whatever.
every frame.
Yeah.
Sorry, I meant Goro, not Kano.
Oh, you mean Goro?
Goro is a tribute to...
Stop animation.
Yeah.
and a friend of mine that I went to.
Ray Harryhausen. He's a tribute to Ray Harryhausen because we all love his movies. And so John really wanted to have that in the game.
A friend of mine that I introduced to John Tobias, named Kurt Chirelli. He's the one that modeled the Goro figure.
Last question. Thanks for your patience, guys.
So I was just wondering, did you guys have much influence into like the stage fatalities in 2 and further on, or friendships?
During 1 and 2, the actors got complete control of most of the special moves and fatalities. They would be the first called up to it, even though, after 5, then we had after the 5th character we filmed, we would have a lot of people just come in and watch us film because we were always having a good time, and it was really cool to watch us just work. So then they started just giving suggestions, but it was usually the actor, along with myself and John, and sometimes Ed, and naturally Rich.
If you were to hang out with us, it would be just a fun time of just creative juices are always constantly flowing. We're always going, and I'm sure a lot of you too, with your friends, when you get around, everyone's coming up with like cool stuff. That's kind of pretty much how it was with us. It's just friends coming up with some like, wouldn't that be cool, or wouldn't that be awesome? And that actually ended up, some people say, yeah, that's how it lands on film, or that's how it got created. We never knew it was going to translate into this big thing. So I always think to myself, if we were ever going to work together again in some way, shape, or form, whether it's like film, television, like a TV show or something, that would be cool, because I don't know what we would come up with, but I think it would be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, but thanks for having us. We're going to wrap up because we got another thing, but thanks for your patience.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Mogate Khan. Thank you. We'll see you guys later.
We will be downstairs at the table. If any
got more questions, you can stop there and ask them there.
Got more questions or photo ops or pictures or anything like that, we'll be down there. Thank you. Love you. Appreciate it.